So now a little bit about Robin. Well, who is Robin? Well, Robin is a pilot, a coach, a hypnotist, hypnotherapist, and also an author, which I found last night when I did a little bit more homework on Robin. So let's get Robin in here and let's get him to spill a little bit of tea with us while I sip on my tea. So, Robin, I want to start off with who are you as a little guy, a little young lad to who you are now?
Oh, right. Well, that's a fair bit of ground to cover. But as a little lad, I was I was the son of a Church of Scotland minister and his wife, my mum Gillian, and we had a very quiet life in a little sort of regional town in the southeast of Scotland, and it was on the face of it idyllic. However, my issue, if I had one at the age of about 5 years old, was that I had to go to school, just like everybody else does. But my father was the chaplain of the school, and at that time, there was a lot of frustration going on in young kids. And of course, kids just want to take it out on somebody, don't they? And of course, authority comes in all sorts of forms. It could be the teacher, it could be the headmaster. Well, guess what? My father, as the chaplain, was sort of God's representative on earth or in school as far as they were concerned. So they couldn't take it out on God. So what was the next best thing? Well, me. And so that started off life on a fairly challenging note, and it went on till I was about 14. And during that time, it changed me. If I'm honest with you, it changed me from a happy, outgoing young kid to a fairly introverted, quiet, crushed young man who had to overcome many of the self beliefs that he'd created about himself in later, at that time. But those had to get rid of those beliefs later in my life because it was going to affect me all the way until now. So it's been an interesting ride, Liz, and hypnotherapy is only part of it. So it's been a long journey, and I look forward to telling you some more about it.
Well, and the reason why I always ask all my guests who they were as a kid and who they are now is because sometimes it brings us into our adulthood, right? The journeys that we take and the steps that we have to take. And you started this business called One Small Step. So it has to start with the small steps of being the young lad to where you
Hmm.
are today, right?
I think, like, there's a wonderful phrase that all growth and joy comes on the far side of fear. And basically, what that means is that you could go through life being grey and mediocre and hiding away in the shadow, and in that way, you don't really offend anybody. You don't really get onto anybody's radar. You just exist. You go through life. You do your 70 years, and then you just disappear. And to me, at the age of 14, I just thought, do you know what? That's not for me. I'm not prepared to go quietly. I'm determined to be more than this crushed soul that I felt I was at the time. And so I did everything in my power to kind of overcome the hurdles that ironically I'd created for myself by self beliefs about myself created by bullying. And that was no easy task. But I did all manner of things that pushed my comfort zone way, way out. And you'll never guess, Liz, I'm still doing it because it doesn't stop. I
Right?
keep on keeping on.
So how did you get the name One Small Step?
By the very fact that I understand that, as I mentioned earlier, fear dominates so much of what we do. And so sometimes moving beyond fear just seems utterly impossible to people. But it only takes one small step, the decision to make change. And I think that is the most important thing of all, is just the decision that you've had enough. You want to change. Something new has to happen. I can't put up with this crap any longer. I need to do something different and make something new happen. And that's it. You don't need to do it in big jumps. You don't need to take massive leaps. You know, the superhuman cloak doesn't need to come out of the cupboard. Just a small step is all it takes to get started, and that's hence the name of the organization.
I really like it because it's simple. I like simple things, right? I serve tea. It's very simple, you
Well,
know.
it works for me.
And one small step does make a difference, right? One small step of beating fear and that. And what I
It
found out
certainly
about
does.
you, Rob, what I found out about you, Robin, is that you're very determined. You're very, moving forward. You've overcome a lot of obstacles in your life. And being a man, speaking about bullying, has to be hard as well. And you also offer services for men as well for that.
Well, it's an interesting thing you mention it, Liz, but I felt when I was younger that I was isolated and alone. I felt very I'm trying to think of the right word. I felt like I was the only person in the world who was a guy who was going through this. And of course I wasn't. But as you mentioned, guys, they do tend to keep themselves to themselves. They don't like to admit vulnerability in any way, shape, or form. We don't like to discuss emotions because in so doing, we admit vulnerability.
Right.
And vulnerability, barely can say the word,
I can't
it's a
say it, so
huge part
you're good.
of the male psyche. And I accept that, and I can only say to you that because I've been through this process of bullying and come out the other side of it, how can I put this without sounding arrogant? There's nothing left anybody can do to me that will make me feel any worse than I did then. So I just feel able to open up about this, and if anybody wants to enjoy a poke or a to try and make fun or anything like that, that's fine. It's just going to go over there now because that's the past. I'm not that kid of 14 any longer, and that's how I get all my clients to look at it as well. You're not that person that you were. You're not the victim that you used to be, and so determination comes in the form of actually seeking adventure. I'm an adventurer in life. I'm a seeker of stories. It's a process whereby I find that there is opportunity everywhere to live a big life if only people would reach out and take it. And I mean that from the lowest person up to the highest. And who is low, who is high? It's just a simple matter of understanding that we put ourselves in boxes, and the events that happen to us in life either confirm or go against our self view. And so often we just accept that that self view is correct and we stay in our box because it's painful, it's challenging to move out of that box. But I just say, to hell with that. Challenge it, ask questions, and then ask, why do I have to be in any box? So I'm not sticking myself in any box, and I'm not going to allow anybody else to do the same for me. I'm fighting that part of me that allowed myself in the past to be put in a box. I won't have that, or I won't have it for others either.